I'm Edwin Warfield, the publisher of CityBiz, and I'm honored today to interview Aaron Rudenstine, who is the CEO of ButterflyMX. Welcome, Aaron.
Thanks so much for having me, Edwin. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Aaron, can you provide an introduction to ButterflyMX?
Yeah, sure thing. ButterflyMX is the leading access platform in the multifamily industry. It's a suite of hardware products that gets stitched together by our software solution. And together, it makes buildings better places to live, better places to work, and better places to visit. From an organizational perspective, we have about 250 people. We have offices largely, our headquarters is in New York City, but we have offices in California and in Western Europe. Over the last couple of years during the pandemic, we ended up hiring about 200 people. So we are mostly a distributed workforce at this point. And while some of us still go into an office, the majority of us work remotely. And the advantage of that is we've been able to hire terrific people from wherever we have ended up finding them. The disadvantage of that is we miss out on the interactions and the connections that get built when you are in person. I think that's pretty common in today's world, and we try to do a lot to bring people together nonetheless. From a capital perspective, we had an interesting history there. In the first 5 years of the company, from 2015 to 2020, we raised about $9 million from individual investors. We were scrappy, we were resourceful, we were capital efficient. We focused a lot on growth in order to become self-sufficient. In 2020, something changed. We decided to actually raise more money to take advantage of what we thought was a very big opportunity ahead of us. And we raised our first institutional round of capital. And that allowed us to scale the organization tremendously. So I talk about all that because that was the capital that propelled the large expansion of our workforce from about 50 people at the beginning of the pandemic to about 250 people today, and largely remote.
So you have an interesting entrepreneurial career prior to joining ButterflyMX. So back in 2011, you were the co-founder of Citymaps. You raised $12 million at that company, and 5 years later, you sold it to TripAdvisor. Walk us through your entrepreneurial career prior to the decision to get involved with ButterflyMX.
Yeah, so my career started in the late 90s in the New York tech scene. So I'm a born and raised New Yorker. I've been in the New York tech world ever since college. And I was a product manager for a B2B software company in the financial services space back in the late 90s and early noughts. I was doing B2B software before the concept of a SaaS became a very popular concept over the last 10 years. What I learned in that experience has stayed with me for the rest of my career, which is when you are a product manager, you are essentially the CEO of your product, which lives inside of a larger organization. And I loved the responsibility that I had as a product manager. So I always knew that the entrepreneurial journey was going to be in my cards, but I didn't really know what the stops were going to be and how it was all going to unfold. I was lucky that when I came out of business school, I had the opportunity to start a company. And as you can imagine, when you start a company, lots of things need to come together, some of which are in your control and many of which are not. You need an idea that you're passionate about. You need the ability to hire the right people. You need the ability to raise some capital so that you can get things off the ground. The market environment needs to be right. The timing for your idea needs to be right in the larger context of things. And so some of those things you can control, and many I was not able to control, but I got very lucky that in 2010, all those things converged and I had this opportunity to start a company. And it was the most thrilling experience of my life. You know, when you start a company from scratch, you don't know where that product is going to end up being before it captures the product market fit, before it is accepted by your target market. And you think you know, but in reality, you don't know. And you pivot, and you experiment until you get there. And that is a thrilling place to be and thrilling place to reside, because once you get there, it's like, nirvana, my job is done. And bang, then you realize your job is only just starting again, because now you have to grow the business once you have that product market fit. And I loved the unpredictability of your days and the roller coaster ride that is inherent in it. But I was fortunate that we built that business and TripAdvisor acquired it. And right around that time, I got a call from someone who I knew from the New York tech world. And he said, I'm an investor in ButterflyMX. It's a really interesting company. They're building out their team, and would you be interested in joining? Well, it wasn't the right time in my own personal life to do that. So I politely declined, but I offered to help out however I can. So for the next year, I spent a lot of time with the CEO and the management team helping out, just totally informally, no strings attached, but just providing whatever advice and guidance I was able to provide. Fast forward into late 2017, the founder CEO, asked if I would join the board. And I was touched, and I was honored, and I was thrilled about it, because I thought this was a really interesting company, and I'd built some really nice relationships with folks. So I joined the board in 2017, and then in 2019, there was another change. The founder CEO turned to me and said, I think it would be really great if you got involved full time. And through a set of conversations, we decided that I would join full time as the CEO. And that was the journey. I'll say a couple of things though. The entrepreneurial journey is unlike anything I've ever done before. And you know this, right? Because you run your own organization and you're building it, and you have your own aspirations for your organization. Nothing is predictable. The highs are the best highs you can ever imagine. The lows are the lowest lows you can ever imagine. And sometimes both the highs and the lows happen within a span of a few hours, and you feel whipsawed in those days, because you seesaw from something incredibly exciting to something much more devastating. And there's something about that I thrive off of, and I love, and I work hard to stay even keeled and not let the highs get to me too much or the lows hurt me too much, but that's hard. And frankly, I'm human, and they do get to me. I get super excited, and then I get pretty down when it doesn't go my way. And I love that. And so I committed myself to this journey. I'm having the time of my life, and it's not right for everyone, but when it's right for you, there's nothing better.
And so tell us about the ButterflyMX and the competitive landscape. Yeah, where are you in the Proptech landscape? And is there a lot of competition?
Yeah. So the Proptech landscape in 2015 was very different than it is today. In 2015, the real estate industry was pretty slow to adopt technology. They had only started to come around to the concept that technology can really make their buildings more efficient, can make it a better place to live or work. It can make it easier for them to own or manage a property remotely. They only started to realize that. And at the time when ButterflyMX was started, sure, there were other companies in the space, but it was not a crowded space at all. Fast forward to 2022, very crowded. Billions and billions, in fact, hundreds of billions of dollars have been invested into this general space. And we happen to be in a fortunate position that we were able to grow during a time when there wasn't a lot of competition. And we sit here now at a point where we have a wonderful brand. We service 10,000 buildings around the country. We're starting to grow internationally. And that fortunately feeds on itself, right? Success begets success, and momentum begets momentum. And with a lot of hard work, we're able to continue that success and that momentum. But within that, there are three things that we focus on maniacally as a way of distinguishing ourselves from all the competition. The first is we are oriented towards access into a property, access throughout a property and community, access into the apartment unit that people live in. We focus on package room solutions, elevator solutions. So everything that has to do with getting people into and throughout a community and a property is what we are focused on. Lots of companies in the PropTech space focus on other things, but that's our bread and butter. So that's the first thing. The second thing is a real commitment to best-in-class products. And while that might be a platitude, for us, it's really not, because we operate in a world where if you can't get into your building or into your apartment or into your gym or your laundry room, your whole day is devastating. That is the thing that will ruin your day. You're sitting outside in the rain because you can't get in. You can't get into your apartment. You can't get into your laundry room. And you are very angry about that. So we take that responsibility very seriously to make sure our products are best in class, work all the time, and people love to use them, and they make people's lives easier. And the last thing is a maniacal focus on customer service. In our industry, customer service doesn't usually get associated with real estate, right? Construction projects make a lot of noise, a lot of mess. People are unreliable. Sometimes they show up, sometimes they don't. They're always delayed. If you are doing a small renovation in your own home, that's usually often delayed and things are never always what they seem to be. Well, we take it to an extreme. Our view is we want to be the Zappos of real estate. We want to make sure that every client, every resident, every tenant has the most amazing experience with ButterflyMX, not just our products, but if they ever reach out to our customer service teams, they get top quality customer service. If they need pizza, we'll send them pizza. There is nothing that we won't do to make sure that they have a tremendous experience with ButterflyMX.
And so earlier this year, ButterflyMX acquired Cloud Keys. Tell us about the impact of that acquisition.
Yeah. So Cloud Keys was this wonderful company that had been around for the last few years and had built some tremendous technology. The main piece of technology that Cloud Keys developed was an access control solution, an access control system that allows people to flow throughout a building seamlessly. An intelligent system that allows me to get into this space when I'm allowed to, and allows you, Edwin, to get into a different space when you're allowed to. It was a system that was built in the cloud. It was a system that allows people to use their mobile app as well as a traditional fob or a plastic card. That was a big piece of our product vision that we hadn't developed yet ourselves. And when we met Cloud Keys, it was, again, just one of those fortuitous moments. It was the right time for them. It was the right time for us. And most importantly, the cultural fit was exceptional. The leaders of Cloud Keys, the founders of Cloud Keys, were just terrific people. We saw eye to eye on our vision and what we wanted to accomplish. We thought we could do that better together. And so we ended up partnering and joining forces to move forward together.
So you gave us a quick overview of your capital journey. Earlier this year, you had a raise that JMI Equity led. Tell us about how the Series D came together and why JMI was the lead, and what were some of your interactions with them?
Yeah, for sure. When we raised the first institutional round back in 2020, there were very specific things that I was looking for. I was looking for an investment partner who I had just complete trust in. I was looking for someone who knew our industry and would be able to provide contextual advice and a perspective that might be different and helpful to us. I was looking for someone who had 20-ish years of experience investing in companies because they could see around corners that perhaps I wouldn't have been able to see in. And we found that in our partner back in 2020 with a company called Volition. Now, fast forward to 2021, when we raised our last round of capital, I was looking for something totally different. I was looking for a company that had a network of experts inside their organization that I would be able to call on to help us with a variety of things. I knew that we were at a stage of our growth where we were going to need to do things that we in-house had never had the experience of doing before. There were some of us who had been at larger companies, but as a whole, this was going to be a new thing for us as a team. And there were going to be a lot of questions that we were going to ask. And it would be really helpful to have people around the table who could say, yep, I've been there, I've done that, and this is this is the things that you should consider when you make your decision. And JMI offered that. So in addition to the partner who ended up joining our board being a wonderful guy, super smart, and helps me in a whole variety of ways, JMI also had this unusual asset in their network of experts that I found to be incredibly compelling. And that was the reason we ended up going with JMI. We were lucky, by the way, to have chosen to raise money at the end of last year instead of 2022. That was fortuitous. And to some extent, it was dumb luck. No one could have predicted what has happened this year. We're very fortunate about that and very grateful that we ended up partnering with JMI.
So let's talk about your growth plans. Is it going to be acquisition, internal growth, or some combination?
Yeah. So right now, the way we look at the world is we're probably in the first, maybe the second inning of technological adoption in the built world, in the real estate world. It is going to take years, probably decades, for all of the real estate that has been built over the last 50 to 100 years to adopt technology. All the new things that are getting built today are going to have all the bells and whistles you would expect. But the majority of the market have already been built, all the buildings that we live and work in today. And so when we look at an opportunity or a market that has so little technological adoption, the first thing that comes to us and says, wow, this is exciting. All we need to do is put our heads down and execute against our business plan. And we'll wake up in a few years and we should have a very big, very exciting company on our hands. So the majority of our growth is going to be organic growth. It is going to be us working really, really hard to make sure our clients get all the value that we promise to give to them. And as we do that, good things will happen. And if opportunities for M&A come around, we will absolutely look at them, and we might actually do it the way we did with Cloud Keys earlier this year. But the primary focus of our business plan going forward is going to be execution, heads down focus on our business plan. Now, I guess I would say one last thing, Edwin, right? Which is growth can also come in a variety of ways, right? You can grow inside of our core market. You can also grow outside of your core market. You can expand internationally. You can expand into other verticals that are adjacent to yours. You can build different products that allow you to solve different use cases for your clients. So we're going to do all of those things, but we think that we're going to do it organically primarily, and then M&A would be sort of opportunistic.
So let's switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk about your role as an angel investor. You're invested into Domains, FilmRise, Button. Tell us about, provide us a quick overview of those angel investments and some highlights and some low points.
Yeah, so angel investing is fun. I didn't really do it until I sold my last company in 2016, and for the first time had a little bit of extra money to invest. But it's really fun. It allows you as an entrepreneur to partner with other entrepreneurs. It allows you to back them and support their endeavors in the same way that when you start your own company, you hope others will support you. So I find that to be thrilling. I also like investing at early stage companies because you don't really know what the future is going to hold. What you're really betting on is this founder going to be someone who can navigate all of the things that are unpredictable that no one can anticipate to get to where you hope that they will be and where they want to be. And so a lot of the bets that I make are really just on the founder, the CEO, the management team, because you can't predict the future all that well when companies are getting started. I've had the good fortune to also be able to invest in later stage companies. So my investment in Reddit, as an example, that was a later stage investment. I'm thrilled about it. It's a tremendous platform, and you're able to evaluate the business in a different way. There's metrics that are very concrete. There's a history that you can analyze. And so you're able to look at it in a very different way, probably less personal and more objective. And I've had the good fortune to be able to do that too. I don't do a lot of angel investing. It's It's sort of like a distant side job that I have, and I don't spend a whole lot of time on it once I make the investment. But I like it, and every so often I get an investment letter from a company, and it's always fun to keep tabs on them. And then if there's ever any help that I'm able to provide to these companies, then I'm always happy to do it.
So prior to this interview, you and I were chatting about some things, and we touched base on the subject of culture. And you had an interaction with Harry Gruner from JMI. Tell us about your culture and tell us about that conversation.
Yeah, for me, culture is number 1, 2, and 3 of importance at an organization. The organizational health of a company is what drives performance. Now, why do I believe that is true? Well, for one, great performance is a result of high velocity of communication, information flowing from one stakeholder to another so that things can be very efficient. For 2, people do their best work in a feedback-rich environment, in an environment where we can provide both positive and constructive feedback to each other without it being seen as a bad thing. It's intended to be seen as something that allows us to do our best work, not only for ourselves, but for each other in the company. In fact, I actually would go so far as to say that the responsibility of a colleague is to provide feedback to other colleagues. You help make their professional development better. You help make them a better colleague, and often you also help them. You also help make them a better person, a better family member, a better spouse, because a lot of the things that we learn in the workplace are also applicable outside the workplace. And so organizational health and culture is top of mind for me all the time. So I had this wonderful conversation with Harry Gruner. Harry Gruner happens to be one of the founders of JMI. And when they invested, I had an opportunity to sit down with him for an hour. And I expected him to ask me a lot of questions that were pretty hard questions about the business and maybe some metrics and some strategy stuff. And he didn't want to talk about any of that. He wanted to talk about culture. He wanted to talk about what was my view and my perspective on how important it was, and what was I going to do to maximize the performance through the improvement of culture. And remember, culture is the thing that happens when you're not looking, right? So it's the small habits, it's the small things that just make everything tick when someone else is not looking to ensure that they tick. That's culture. And if we can get to a place inside of our organization where we're doing all the right things without people needing to point it out and micromanage or even look, that's where you reach your optimal performance. So I was talking about this with Harry prior to their investment, and it struck me that this was a very unusual conversation for me to be having with the head of a very successful private equity firm. But I think it also speaks to the way JMI looks at the world, right? Which is that culture is probably one of those things that doesn't get a lot of attention in the media, but also probably one of those things that's the most important to pay attention to as a company. And so we try really hard to pay attention to it. Now, in terms of ButterflyMX, we care a lot about collaboration. Collaboration is built on trust. Trust is built on being able to be comfortable with each other, being able to respect each other, being able to talk to each other without fear of reprisal. And when you have all that, then you're excited to collaborate, and collaboration becomes really easy. We also have a culture oriented towards the customer. One of our values is customer first always, which basically means customers are not always right, but when they're not right, we're going to have a conversation with them. It means that we are in service of our customers, and we are not just building products that we're going to throw over the fence to them, but we're going to be their partners as they grow their own business, as they make their own communities as great as it can possibly be. And the last part of our culture is think big, do small. That basically means it's good to think big and it's good to have grand ideas, but nothing gets done without doing the small incremental work every single day that is not going to be in the news, but it's the things that are so important to making everything work. And all of us do it. I roll up my sleeves every single day to do the small things so that we can, over time, achieve the big things. So that's a little bit about ButterflyMX and how we think about culture. And I would say one last thing about it. Culture is often a reflection of the people who run an organization. And before I joined ButterflyMX, it was being run by our founder, who's also now our chairman, a guy named Cyrus Claffey. And Cyrus built this wonderful company for 5 years that did not only great things in the industry and very innovative things in the industry, and didn't only do great things in terms of building a good business, but also did great things internally in terms of how people learn to interact with each other at ButterflyMX, how we as a company learn to provide services and partner with our clients. Now, when I took over, there was several things that could have happened, right? So for one, Cyrus realized that the company had gotten to a point where there was a different level of rigor, a different level of systems and processes that were going to be needed than what we had in the past. And he realized that one of my strengths was some of those things. And he thought I could play a really important role at the next stage of the company. And that transition could have gone a couple ways, right? He asked me to join the company as the CEO. He knew that he was going to move to a different role. And he could have, despite giving up the title of the CEO, he could have held on to a lot of the decision-making control that he was accustomed to. And that would have decimated our culture, and it would have caused us to not achieve our ultimate ambitions and our ultimate potential. But he did the exact opposite. He actually let me grow into the role. He helped me grow into the role, but from the sidelines. He became a close consigliere, a close advisor. He helped me get up to speed, but he also allowed me to make the decisions and to fail and to make the mistakes, all the things that I needed to be able to do in order to become the leader and the person that I am in the organization. And I think that's also a reflection of the great culture that we have, that it's trusting. It allows us to fail. It allows us to make mistakes. We hope that we never make the same mistake twice. And we help each other. And Cyrus did that incredibly well when I was transitioning in, and I'm forever grateful.
So, Aaron, is there any part of your personal journey or the ButterflyMX story that you haven't shared with us that you'd like to share with us?
You know, the company today is a result of some of the really hard work that the founding team did. Cyrus, Kunal, Anthony, these are people who were part of the early team, many others as well. And they put us on a trajectory that we are on today. And I think, you know, what doesn't get told too much is that those early people who did all the hard work to get the product market fit, to get the early market traction, their story doesn't get told in the same way that everyone else's story gets told. Why? Because it happened like 8 years ago and people forget. And you don't really remember that you're only here because of them. And our success today is in large part driven by what was done in the past. So I think the last thing I would say is, you know, credit really goes to the early folks. Not to say that we're not doing really great work today and working really hard, but we're doing it because the folks in the early stages put this company on their shoulders, found a way of really making it work and putting it on a trajectory that when we step in to do the work we're doing today, it already has a tremendous amount of momentum. So hats off to them. And I think that giving credit to where credit's due is really, really important.
Well, Aaron, I've greatly enjoyed this interview, and we wish you the best of luck personally and with the company. Please keep us apprised of your continuing upward trajectory. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be with you. Thanks for your time.